Hey everyone, my name is Maurice and I wanted to show you a video on my Ninja 500 swap into my 250 frame. Just to give you a little overview of the motorcycle, I bought this motorcycle a long time ago, and the first motor died at about 86,000 miles, and so I had a $100 mystery motor from Craigslist. And that motor died around 3 years later. So what I did was I advanced the timing on it to 46.5 degrees and took it on a 3,000 mile road trip to Colorado. And it didn't quite make it back, but you know, it did pretty good along the way. So I had bought these 500 motors for 50 bucks on Craigslist years ago. It didn't come with any accessories or anything, but decided to put it in. So one of the main things about this motor is that it's offset to the side, so it's hard to see, but actually if you look at the carburetors, the whole motor sits in this way, about 1.5 inches or so. So what I did when I first made this was went off this base, you know, use this as a baseline here for the chain line. So, you know, took something straight and measured that off. So that was mainly what I measured off of. And then as far as going forward and back, I kind of, it was a hard decision, you know, to like get the pod filters to fit, and then also to fit my motor, my sidecar mount. So some of the issues I ran into while doing this was where to place the radiator. Because I moved the motor so far forward, I didn't actually have room to put the radiator with the fan, but I did get it up nice and high so I get good airflow. I had the bike way lower before, and I had trouble with the airflow with the 250 radiator. So this is the whole 500 cooling system that I bought. I was going to adapt the 250, but I figured I'd need the bigger radiator. I had to raise it up because if you look and see, there's not a lot of clearance. I also had to make the exhaust. You know, I used a 2-into-1 system. I was actually going to try to use the 250 pipes, but the flange was different. It just wasn't going to work. So this 2-in-1 was meant for the 250. I do run an oxygen sensor. I'm waiting for a new gauge from AEM, which they are lollygagging on. Some other issues are like the carbs don't quite run right with the 250, with the pod filters. But overall, yeah. So I took this on this first road trip yesterday, and it has lots and lots and lots and lots of torque, and I love it. It does vibrate quite a bit, but anyway, this is a quick overview. I'm gonna go into you know, me actually making this whole thing, and some of the struggles I went with. It's gonna be a long, boring video, but yeah, this is the overview. Hey everyone, I'm working on swapping this ex500 motor into an ex250 frame. This is a spare frame I have that I ripped out. I had to tack them back into place, but basically ripped out all the tubes from the head tube because I have a sidecar on my Ninja 250. So this motor died, and I want to put the bigger motor in. So my first job was sort of to measure where the chain line lined up with the rest of it. So what I was going off of was this thing, which seems to be a pretty straight, square surface that I can actually put a piece of metal on and then measure off how far this is. It measured about somewhere around 54.5 millimeters. It wobbles quite a bit, so there's, you know, it's kind of rough. And so now what I'm going to do is sort of figure out where that is on this. And what I've done is also done the same thing, measured off of here and measured in to see how everything fits. Now the carburetors don't sit square within the frame. they're actually, the whole motor's offset that way a little bit. But what I did do, sorry for the wobbly camera, is I took this part of the lower mount out, and this part of the frame lines up square with this guy, and this is exactly 54.5, well, you know, roughly 54.5 millimeters. So what I'm thinking about doing is, on the other frame, lopping off that one, keeping this so that I have reference. I would cut this guy off, just the head off, so that I can have the insert and then just keep the entire motor mount. But unfortunately, I think, you know, I don't have anything long enough to reach these, and I'm not exactly sure where all this is going to fit with the carburetors. But I'm going to make more videos and take pictures. So what I've been working on is trying to get this engine sort of lined up with the chain, and also make sure I have room for the carburetors. They're pretty wide, so they almost hit the frame here. So what I did was actually, so I've kept this motor mount, and this is the only one I've kept from all the other ones, from the old ones. And so I put a bolt through here, tightened it down, and then kind of, you know, eyeballed to where it was straight. And actually, even with this little, even with this little guy, you know, sort of spacer there, the chain line is actually pretty decent. You know, if I sort of line it up and look at where the grooves wore in to, sorry, it's a bit dark, but where these grooves wore in here, it's pretty close. So, you know, I tightened it up, and I had this big gap here, and I was hoping to use these guys, which are great. You know, they're really close to what like the stock things are. You can just buy them off the shelf, drill a little bit of a bigger hole, and then good to go. But I have all this space, so what I've decided to do is weld another tube onto the other tube, and then get these to about, you know, where I want them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the motor back out, get these two, this on the other side, to where they're completely level, and sort of just tack them into place with this guy. Then I'll come back, put the bolt back in, move the engine up to where I want it, and then you know, tack it all into place and make sure I like it. I will have to put one on the other side, and unfortunately I have this pretty big mount back there for the sidecar. As for the front, I have no idea how I'm going to fit a radiator up there. It's going to tilt back a little. I think what I'm going to have to do is raise up my motorcycle, which I'm sad because I was totally slammed, but this motor's super low. So I didn't mind scraping stuff on the other one, but since the engine is, the oil thing here is on the lowest part, this thing's gonna have to come up probably a whole inch, which is kind of sad for me because I like to be slammed, but it is what it is. So here's where I am with my current progress. I wanted to keep this lower tab into the lower bolt, so I don't have a lot of light, but my sprocket is looking kind of low for where the chain lines up, and you know where it's gonna hit on the swing arm. So I looked, and some ex500s use a 15. There was a 14 on there, so I had a 15. I put it on, and it looks like I'll get a little more clearance. And what I could do is go with a 16 and just keep it nice and big in the back so that I don't actually run too big of a gear. But I still wanted to raise the engine up a little bit, so I did. This is, you know, my bar I made. I have, again, not a lot of light, but I have zip tied it to this thing so I can kind of line it up. And it's kind of looking like where it's gonna be, but I don't, it's still a little low, and I'm just trying to squeeze everything in. And then I have this stupid, you know, mount for my sidecar, and so it's got to squeeze in between the engine right here. And so I don't know, it's looking like this might be where it is. My biggest problem right now is that the carburetor is hitting the frame, and I'd love to just like notch the fuck out of that, but I don't want to notch the frame even if I put a gusset in. Like, this frame is kind of paper thin as it is, so what I might do is, you know, get in there and file this down, the carburetor itself, and just kind of, you know, just give it some love and see how much I can take off before I fuck something. Besides that, like, it is a tight fit. I moved all my electrical stuff up. You know, this is an adapter I made to run the 250 radiator, but I went ahead and bought a whole 500 cooling system just because. And then my other problem is, like, where is that radiator gonna fit? Because this thing's in the way and there's not a lot of room here, and then, like, where am I gonna run my exhaust? So, things to think about, but I feel like I'm close to start welding all this in as soon as I take those carburetors down a little. Alright, so I take back what I said earlier. So I started moving stuff around and jiggling the whole motor, and it kind of like fell into place right where I want it. Now there's a bunch of space where the carbs was, so I don't know what I did. I have no idea. I have this all zip tied kind of right in there, and I started looking in the chain line. It's actually not looking as good. Where the just going by where the grooves are, if I like kind of start wrapping the chain up this way, keeping it straight, it wasn't lining up with the grooves. It was actually showing a little bit inward. So I took out that motor mount spacer. Oh, there's not enough light, I'm sorry, but there's a motor mount here, and I took out this spacer, and that's what I had originally thought with the other frame, and it's looking good, looking pretty good. So it might be time to start welding everything in, which makes me nervous because, you know, once things are welded in, they're not as much fun to take out. So I'm gonna go back, double check that my carbs, you know, kind of look okay, like the motors. Actually, it is all looking good. I think I'm just gonna weld this. I'll make another video in a bit. So I welded in my mount, my first one, and what I done was I welded these little tabs, which are great for centering, and then I welded this pipe on and welded it nice and straight, and I was really happy with it. And then I welded it onto here, and it got fucking crooked, and I was so bummed. It's hard to see. One of these sides is a little higher than the other, and you can see it. And I was like, oh fuck, do I have to cut it all out? But then I looked, and there's like so much play in this motor mount that, like, it's not gonna matter. These ones, on the other hand, are like real tight. They have like rubber bushing, so I think that one's just kind of just to be in there. So maybe it's a good thing I put that one in first. Now I'm gonna make two identical, since I have these tabs, which are the same on each side. I'm gonna make a front mount that goes to here and make them exactly identical, so that I know that the frame's in there straight, or straight enough. Yeah. Well, I've made some progress and I've made some mistakes. I did weld this in right after I shot the video. Unfortunately, I thought I had the motor pretty straight, and then when I welded it in, it was pretty obvious after I took the motor out that this side is higher than that side. Not by a lot, but like a solid 1/8 of an inch. And so really kind of panicked, and I was like, oh man, I don't have to cut that out. So I put the motor back in, and then I realized that the hole inside this thing actually has a ton of play, so the motor would actually jiggle back and forth. So what I did was made these really phallic looking brackets, the little balls included, and I was like, okay, well, I'll make these even, and they'll tell me how off the motor is, or, you know, kind of roughly, because even these have some play at the top. So that's what I did, and yeah, it did come back a little bit when I put it in. I had to run spacers, so like this bottom one is spaced out, and on the other side the whole thing is spaced out, but it's, you know, flush with the bottom. And so I think I'm about to wrap it up for the night. what I did was my chain is now considerably shorter, but I kind of undid the link and I'm rotating it around and seeing how the chain lines up, and I think I'm good. I think I'm pretty solid. So I'll get back to this another day. I'm pretty happy with where it is, so I'm gonna make some motor mounts for the bottom again another day, and then start putting this whole thing together. I don't know if my radiator is gonna fit in the front with this whole, you know, bend. I might have to take some material out of this, but we'll see how it goes. Well, I guess on the last video I realized that these pipes are not going to work. These are the 250 ex500 pipes, and they're pretty thick walled. They're really heavy. I drove about 4 hours round trip to Sacramento to get ex500 pipes, and the flange is quite a bit different between the two, and they fit. I got some clamps for them, but the clamps, unfortunately, whoa, focus, thank you. Alright, still won't focus. Anyway, well, you can see it in the blur. Alright, that the holes didn't line up. They're too small, so I just kind of opened them up. Now I'm hacking off the crossover pipe and cutting them a little shorter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 2-into-1, and hopefully the merger that I bought will work. I think it will. Instead of actually slipping in there, they're just going to butt up to it, and so I think I can just weld it up if I get them close enough. So yeah, I'm going to keep working on the exhaust and see where I get today. Well, that was really fast. Yeah, they are pretty much where I want them to be. I think I'm going to lop them off here, stick the adapter on, and then run it so I can run it back through here, and then hook it up to the old exhaust and you know, use all the brackets and everything I already have. I'll need to put an oxygen, I have an oxygen sensor for this, so I'll put a bung somewhere in the system, but pretty stoked about how quick this came along. We'll see how long it takes to finish it, but after this I'll get going on the well, you can't see them, but the motor mounts. Well, I tacked on the 2-into-1. It's a little bit undersized, but you know, it's what I have, and I don't really want to order another one. These two fit on there pretty good. They just kind of clear. I made little plates out of tubing that I wasn't using to cover up the crossover tubes, and yeah, that's about it. I'm gonna take it off and weld it up as shitty as possible, and then have this guy that has a little bend in it, so I might just put them on there. This goes back, and then grab the other exhaust and, you know, hack it off and see where everything fits up. But I think exhaust is, you know, gonna be set in probably the next 20 minutes, so I'm pretty happy about that. So I got about a third of the way through the welding, and everything lined up good, and it still looks good, and I tacked it in a bunch of places, and then by the end of it, I don't know what the fuck happened here, but yeah, heat, man. I don't know. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, this thing needs to get bent back and out. I might have to cut maybe like this guy off and just start all over with it. Fuck. Alright, round 2. I said tighten the snot out of the clamps up front, and gonna give this another go and see if I can keep it from warping. So my radiator came in today, and these are, you know, comparing the two. So this is the 500. It's a bit wider than the 250, not by a whole lot. Oh, sorry about that. Not by a whole lot, but a little bit. But it also has a little more, you know, girth to it, which is apparently what's the most important thing. Had I known that this was so close in size, I would have swapped for one of these anyway earlier. So this should maybe kind of fit in here. I'm gonna have to wrap my headers because they're gonna be real close to my radiator, but oh, get the fuck in there. Of course I can't do this on camera. Anyway, it kind of fits in there, it kind of squeezes in there. I might have to bend the tab at the top, and I might need to, so I already lopped this off because this was hitting my headers. I might need to like get a, you know, ghetto fab sort of deal with that. But I think if I raise up my forks a bit and kind of tuck it back, you know, this back as far as possible, and maybe even like trim these up a little bit, I might be able to get some good just enough clearance. But that's how my radiator is looking. But it looks pretty simple. I bought a whole kit on eBay, and it came with the thermostat and the hoses, which is great because my old one's got about 100,000 miles or so on it, and I kind of ran it with straight water for a couple years, so it's rusty and I should get rid of it. So yeah, so that's the progress. I have hooked up the chain, hooked up the electrical. I welded in the bottom mount and kind of spray painted it in place. Ideally I'd pull out the engine and get the welds a little better, but I don't really care. I got the throttle in place. It was kind of hard. I definitely need new cables. They're not real happy. I think they're fraying up at the throttle. What else? Got the clutch hooked up. I need to extend the neutral safety switch. And the nice thing is the charging cable just plugs right into the old plug, so that's all good. What else do I need to do? I need to wire in the computer. Now luckily when I first bought the motor a few years ago, I labeled everything, so everything's labeled. Just hook up power and the ground, and then, you know, splice out from each one. Well, you know, I got a plug already for the engine itself. That I've already run that at some point. And yeah, run into the coils. I'll probably splice them into the old one so I can run the old wires straight to the coils. I need to actually mount the coils, I think. So this is shaping up, and I have a feeling if I spend some time on it tomorrow, I could have this thing rolling. So not that crazy of a project, but you know, kind of stressful and not as fun as I hoped it would be. Alright, so I got the radiator all mounted up. It kind of fits in there. I had to lop off the back of my fender. It's real close, but I don't think it's gonna hit. And I got it up real high so I can get as much airflow into it. The thermostat had to sit kind of like up here in the middle of nowhere, which makes it nice because now I can shove all my wires kind of in this area where my thing used to be. Oh, mail came in. This is my overflow. What else? I wrapped my exhaust to try to keep a little heat off the radiator. Bad news though, I can't fit a fan behind this, and I might try to get a slim fan, but yeah, we'll see if that even happens. Coil. Put the other coil here. It's filled with water. The hose is kind of hardened, so I might look for another one, but it does fit into the stock one. Vacuum, same thing with the vacuum hose, fits also hard. And that's about it. I need maybe a grounding strap to the engine, maybe. So basically all I have now is electrical. This guy's not looking so good these days, so I might try to find a replacement for that. I don't think I can get this one on the other side, which is kind of a bummer. And basically just take out the old box and splice in the this guy, and I labeled everything in the past, and so shouldn't be too big of a job. Hopefully in another hour or so I can fire it and see if it runs. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it's getting close to being done. Well, it's a bit messy, but I've finished up the wiring-ish. You know, I have to shorten some of this, but I took the old igniter box and you know, trace the wires to make sure I had them right. I think I have them right. I'm gonna hook up the battery, put some fuel in the carbs, and see if this thing fires up. All right, let's give this a go. Well, it runs! My headlights aren't working, but it fires up. And I can kind of rev it.